In a world where the rich literally throw people away like garbage, Rudo thought the worst thing that could happen was getting caught stealing their trash. Turns out he was dead wrong. After witnessing his foster father's brutal murder and getting framed for the crime, Rudo finds himself plummeting into the pit where all the city's waste gets dumped, including the humankind. Now he's got to survive in a literal hellscape of trash monsters and find his way back to the surface to clear his name and hunt down the real killer. Treat your possessions with care, and in time, they will develop a soul. But what if the situation were reversed? In a privileged society where apparently stitching isn't a thing, a little girl's mother's only solution to a small tear in her stuffed bunny was to throw it away. Wearing white and gold is the only fashion choice in this high-class society. They all seem to share the hobby of discarding their belongings as soon as possible. While these items no longer hold any value to these people, there are those less fortunate who'd give anything to get their hands on them. At the garbage collection site, such people can be found scavenging through the trash like vultures with a taste for chipped cutlery. These people are called trash raiders by the upper society and are seen as worse than filth. One such trash raider gets caught in the act by guards. The trash raider throws some of the trash at them, and the guards flop around as if they had been waterboarded with acid. The trash raider uses this opening to flee, but is not able to go too far before he is found again. The guards open fire at him. He dodges the first round of bullets like Neo, and then starts sprinting away. Despite dodging most bullets, the trash raider is grazed by one but manages to escape. Getting a firing squad for stealing a torn bunny rabbit is the atmosphere around this place. Devoid of most basic necessities, the other side of town is slums inhabited by people called tribesfolk. The news of Rudo's activities from yesterday starts spreading around. Chiwa, a girl living in the slums who doesn't seem to think of Rudo as a filthy rabid beast, warns him to stop trash raiding and putting his life on the line like that. Rudo had confidence in his ability. Plus, he would sell the stuff he took from the raids and use that money to cover his living costs. As the two of them are conversing, a bunch of delinquents show up. First, they make fun of Rudo by calling him stinkier than a fish market vendor, and then they go after his hands, which he keeps hidden with gloves. But what breaks the camel's back is when they mention his father. Evidently, these slums were first created to lock criminals away from the rich society adjacent to them. All the tribesfolk were their descendants and had been living honest lives, hoping to be welcomed back into high society. However, this hope was ruined by Rudo's father, who allegedly went on a killing spree. The hooligans start taunting Rudo about turning out just like his father, upon which Rudo gives them a stare you give when someone steps on your brand new Jordans. Regardless of what they had to say, Chiwa believed in Rudo and knew he wouldn't turn out like that. She then spots the bunny Rudo brought back and loves it. Rudo had planned to give it to her, but as the poor lad tries to tell her that after finally mustering up some courage, Chiwa's mother shows up and takes her back home. Rudo then heads back as well, where he is met by Rikto, his foster father, who greets him by doing an impression of Rudo trying to give Chiwa the bunny. Rikto had come to know about Rudo's trash diving as well and advised him against going that far, especially if he thought this was his way of repaying his debt to him or something. Rikto had found Rudo as an abandoned child and raised him as his own. To Rudo, Rikto was his only family. He did those raids to help Rikto out because he wanted to, not because he needed to. Rikto dressed Rudo's injury. The pain from the injury was nothing compared to what he had endured in the past. His father had left both his hands charred black, which would give him surges of pain from time to time. Although Rudo's father had been sentenced to death by being thrown in the pit for his crimes, what he did to Rudo didn't end with his life. Rudo would face scrutiny from everyone around him because of his hands. That was the case until he was found by Rikto, who gave him those gloves that also seemed to lessen the pain. What Rikto had done for Rudo was more than he could ever repay. He would have been perfect in Rudo's eyes, if only he didn't tease Rudo about Chiwa all the time. After practicing his smile for Chiwa that looked like that of a constipated serial killer, Rudo goes over to her house to find her. On his way, he witnesses a live execution of a criminal in the pit. The pit was basically where all the trash was thrown, but it was also used to throw criminals into as a form of punishment. Chiwa pops up there as well, almost scaring Rudo to death. The pit had been positioned so that it was visible from every part of the slums. It could be said that it was done intentionally to keep in people's minds what fate awaited them if they were to ever stray from the path. Chiwa tells Rudo she never wanted to see him being thrown in there, so he should stop trash raiding because if he got caught, he could end up being sentenced to the pit. Rudo tells Chiwa that she was repeating the exact words Regto always told him, to which she replied, of course he would because he loved him too. Rudo, although it takes him 2 business days to figure out, realizes that meant Chiwa liked him. This realization sends Rudo rolling around on the floor with mixed emotions. He then quickly hands Chiwa the bunny and dashes away from there because staying any longer would explode his heart like a volcano. As he's heading back, he sees some apostles, the guards from the higher society. When he's finally back home, he wonders what kind of reaction Recto would give him when he tells him what just happened. But what he finds inside was a nightmare. A masked man had stabbed Recto and was standing over him. Before Rudo can do anything, the masked man stabs him too and calmly walks out with a mystery book as Rudo can only watch. Rudo goes over to Recto, who, with his final breath, tells him to run away this instant. His last words to Rudo were to change this wicked place. Then suddenly, the apostles enter the house and arrest Rudo for murdering Recto. Rudo tries telling them he wasn't the culprit and the real murderer was out there. But they don't listen, and when he resists, they knock him out cold. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself hanging from the contraption used to send criminals down into the pit. He was falsely accused. They were pinning the murder of his foster father on him, but no one questioned. They were all deluded, devoid of any independent thought, chanting for the sentence to be carried out like it was an exciting spectacle. Among them, Rudo spots the one person who would believe him, Chiwa. He shouts out he didn't do it, but even his final hope dies out. Chiwa believes the words of others and gives up on him too. That was it, Rudo's breaking point. As he's about to curse them, he spots the murderer among them, watching. But before he can say another word, the signal for the execution is given, and down he goes. Rudo pledges to get back at every single one of them as he falls into the pit, but he doesn't die. He ends up on a pile of trash. The smell was overwhelming, even for Rudo, which meant it was something else. There was no light, no life, and certainly no showers down here. Just piles upon piles of garbage. Then, all of a sudden, the trash behind him starts rising until it takes the form of a colossal monster made of rubbish. The pit truly was worse than anything he could have imagined. It was hell. While everyone was passionate about condemning the so-called filthy criminals to the pit, wondering why they committed such crimes and why the tribesfolk didn't understand, no one seemed to discuss what happened to these criminals after they were dropped into the terrifying pit. Right now, Rudo was about to learn firsthand what that aftermath was going to be like. Colossal monsters, made up of trash, start emerging one after the other. The scene seemed like something right out of hell. The air was so polluted and toxic that breathing it in for extended periods would lead to Rudo's lungs rupturing. Was he going to die like this? Is this going to be the end of his tale? Right as he's on the verge of giving up and accepting his fate, Recto's death flashes across Rudo's mind. He suddenly realizes he can't die just yet. He needed to get back at those who sent him here and branded him a criminal without listening to him. But even before that, he needed to find the man who killed Rigto and make him suffer a fate worse than death. His eyes light up with rage, and a new spirit awakens inside him as he grabs a metal pipe and smashes it across the face of a pit monster without even looking at it like a total badass. Meanwhile, from a distance, someone watches Rudo going berserk in the pit. Despite taking damage from the hostile environment, Rudo keeps going. He even trash talks the pit monsters, calling them stinkier than Ricto's farts, which must be unbearable since Rudo finds the toxic air preferable. Rudo grabs hold of a signpost and throws it better than most Olympic-level hammer throwers. As it slices off an arm of the beast, all this ruckus awakens two more, a snake-like and a ram-like pit monster. And suddenly Rudo is up against twice as many human-eating garbage titans. The two smelly titans clash with each other, ripping off massive chunks. Rudo seizes the opportunity, grabs a metal sheet, and leaps at one monster, slicing it from mouth to tail, causing it to explode and destroy the other beast. The battle was far from over, though, as another pit monster, far bigger than the two before it, emerges. It gets on its hind legs like the Brachiosaurus in that one scene from Jurassic Park and stomps its forelegs on the ground. As it stomps, Rudo tries to run, but the force sends a shockwave that throws him. Rudo tumbles and rolls and lands at the feet of a masked man with an umbrella, out for a leisurely walk across the pit. He grabs Rudo's collar, picks him up, and kicks him in the back. Before Rudo can retaliate, he grabs his face and sticks a mask on him. The mask filters the toxic air, allowing Rudo to finally breathe properly for the first time since he had been dropped into the pit. Rudo starts questioning the man right away about who he is and what is going on. The masked man unzips his mask and quietly tells Rudo to keep quiet. After inhaling poisonous air and battling giant monsters made out of rusty toasters and broken refrigerators for the past several minutes, keeping calm and quiet had long since been thrown out the window. Rudo bombards the man with questions about what is going on and what the pit, this underground, is exactly. The masked man tells him it isn't underground and tells him to quiet down once more. But after Rudo still doesn't listen and instead starts speaking even louder, the masked man, who had been quite patient all this time, finally snaps and starts yelling even louder. He tells Rudo they are not underground but above ground, thanks to all the garbage spherates like Rudo have thrown down here. He explains why he had been insisting on keeping a low voice. These monsters made up of garbage, called trash beasts, are sensitive to sounds produced by humans, and since they are indestructible using ordinary means and numerous in this area, he didn't want to attract their attention. But while telling Rudo all this, he yelled at a decibel level higher than a freight train, which caught all the trash beasts' attention, and they start rushing in. The masked man wasn't one to raise the roof of the place, but he couldn't deny how good it felt to let it all out. That's when a trash beast gets a little too close. The masked man sticks his umbrella out, which then catches fire, and right as the trash beast is about to swallow him whole, he points the umbrella in its direction. The spinning umbrella acts as an incinerator, completely obliterating the trash beast. What's more is that after disintegrating, it wasn't regenerating either. That was just one. A dozen more were left, waiting to charge him. But the masked man doesn't waver. He charges them head on, and in the blink of an eye, he pierces through several of the trash beasts, bringing all of them down like dominoes. As he casually glides down using his umbrella, Rudo wonders what kind of power or technology he is using that gives him so much destructive capability. If he could get his hands on this power somehow, it would be curtains for all his enemies. The biggest trash beast remained. It collects a kind of acidic fluid in its mouth and spits it straight at the masked man, who uses his umbrella to disperse it all around him, leaving himself completely unharmed. He then dashes at the final enemy, leaps into the air, charges his umbrella, points it at the trash beast like a missile, and unleashes the Umbreaker Octashater. It shreds through the trash beast with so much force that it gets completely annihilated. The masked man then walks back to Rudo. He takes off his headgear and then his mask and introduces himself as Injin, a simple cleaner down here in the pit. But the horrible stench of the pit makes him put his mask back on as fast as he took it off. Rudo passes out while Injin is blaming him for exposing him to this horrendous place. In his unconscious state, Rudo dreams of the past, back when he was beaten up by some kids for saying inanimate objects were alive. Recto had taught Rudo that if you take care of something long enough, it becomes inhabited by a soul. He encouraged Rudo to care for his belongings, but Rudo, as a child, took this to mean that objects were alive. Recto too believed that these everyday objects had souls inside them, and told Rudo to always take good care of his belongings. Rudo then regains consciousness and finds himself chained up and being dragged by Injin like a pile of trash. Rudo politely asks Injin why he is being carried like this, to which Injin replies that after Rudo passed out, he couldn't just leave him there, so he decided to take him along. Although his intentions were pure, his method was questionable. Rudo starts flopping around like a fish and tells Injin he has to go back up the top, which Injin referred to as the sphere, was always on the move. That, plus a few other factors, made getting back up there impossible for now. Rudo quickly picks up on the use of now by Injin. This meant that there was a way to get up there, in the sky. Rudo demands that Injin tell him about that, as well as the secret to his powers and this world, so he can get back up and exact his revenge on the person who killed Recto and everyone who condemned him to this fate. Rudo wasn't going to sit still until he did all that. At this point, Injin had just about enough of Rudo's shenanigans. Since he was so eager to find out about this place, the ground, he can do so to his heart's content as Injin leaves Rudo behind. A group of masked people finds him. They observe Rudo like he is some sort of alien and ask him if he is a spherate. Rudo answers that he is, upon which they all throw their masks off and gather around him in a frenzy. They ask Rudo if he really is a spherate and examine him up close to check if he is alive, as if Rudo were a ghost. Apparently, finding a live spherate around here was as rare as finding an air freshener in this place. One of them, their boss, takes pity on Rudo the way he is all chained up and starts removing the chains. Rudo starts thinking these are decent, nice people, far better than that douche Injin. But the next second, Rudo is chained up inside a truck. These people were no saints. They were spherate traffickers who would sell someone like Rudo to the highest bidder. The trash that spherates kept throwing down here continued to pile up, creating poisonous air all around and even monsters made out of garbage. There were plenty of people down here who knew someone who was crushed under that pile, was killed by one of the monsters, or died from air poisoning. This created a deep hatred for all who lived on the sphere among the locals here, and they would love to get their hands on a cursed spherate so they could get payback. The leader of the kidnappers then grabs a pile of rotten food and starts shoving it down Rudo's mouth. Suddenly, his joy turns into horror as Rudo strips the flesh off his fingers. Just like the people above, folks down here kept blaming others and putting labels on them. Rudo was fed up with this. He was fed up with being treated like he shouldn't exist by everyone. An aura of red energy starts wrapping around the chains, and Rudo breaks free. He is now overflowing with power. Injin looks on from a nearby location. Rigto's words about a soul inhabiting objects that had been well cared for repeat in Rudo's mind. He grabs hold of the chain, and it floods with power. People who could give life to objects and draw out their power were called givers, and it wasn't a common trait amongst spherates. The leader of the kidnappers orders his goons to kill Rudo immediately. They charge him, but Rudo's chains are one heck of a threat. So one of them aims for the chain and dislodges it from Rudo's grasp, since givers' power lies in their objects. But to the kidnapper's horror, Rudo could use more than one object as he picks up a tire. Two very different reactions are received from this feat, and Rudo slams the tire on the kidnapper's face. After slamming everyone with the tire, only the boss was left. Rudo had a worse fate in mind for him, but is stopped at the last second by Injin. Rudo regains his composure and tries to process what just happened. This power had taken a toll on Rudo's body. Injin apologizes for leaving Rudo like that, but he needed to verify his powers. Now that he had verified them, Injin tells Rudo he needs people like him and invites him to join the cleaners. But Rudo politely says no.